This episode of Video Game Book Club is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to support the Boss Rush Network and our family of podcasts, head on over to our Patreon at patreon.com/BossRushNetwork. Thanks for your continued support. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Video Game Book Club Boss Rush Podcast, Spoilercast and Review Discussion Show. I'm one of your hosts, Corey Dirrig, and alongside me, as always, is the mad pharmacist herself, Stephanie Klimov.
Hello, I'm glad to be back for another book club, and I'm excited to talk about a pretty awesome gem of a game.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited to talk about it too, in more ways than one, I think. But before we do that, also here with us, speaking
Another
of gem. Ha. PK Power, Pat Klein.
Man, you guys ready to go into Uncharted territory here tonight?
Oh, absolutely, and see what lies with our fortune.
Also something Drake, not his penis.
Oh no.
What?
This podcast is about to blow up.
Well, that was another news thing about video leaked and showing Drake and his unit, and that actually was true.
No.
Oh.
Hermit. Not Nathan Drake. Drake.
Rapper Drake.
Yep.
Well, this is why you don't want to put certain stuff like that on the internet, guys and girls.
That definitely wasn't Drake's fortune.
Oh,
no. It was his misfortune.
Honestly, he
Bad
didn't care
puns.
one way or another, to be perfectly honest. He's like, yeah, that's my dick.
Jeez.
Oh.
Okay, before we get any further down this rabbit hole,
Where's the run?
yeah, no, he turned this into an after dark topic.
That's the point. Anyway.
Oh man, speaking of whatever, I don't know. We have a few notes to take care of before we get started. Since this is coming out for patrons in February, we are going to PAX East, the three of us, as well as our compadres at the Boss Rush Network. If you see us there, come say hi. We will be doing interviews and writing articles and doing podcasts and doing all kinds of things there, meeting up with friends, collaborating, doing all that stuff. So come say hi if you're there. It's March 21st to the 24th. If you're listening to this on free feeds, you can get Book Club 1 month early for only $1 on our Patreon. But check out our PAX coverage and our content from PAX. It's going to be a good time. We have to figure out how we're doing podcasts and stuff there, but we'll talk about that at a later date. I'm very excited for PAX, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Wicked excited.
Yeah.
Good times.
If speaking of Patreon, if you want to support the Boss Rush Podcast, Video Game Book Club, and the Boss Rush Network, you can head on over to Patreon at patreon.com/BossRushNetwork, where you can get this show 1 month early and ad-free, as well as other perks like earning early access to all of our other podcasts, voting rights on games we play here. Go vote. Go vote. If you're a patron, go vote. And more at a tier that's right for you. Again, that's patreon.com/BossRushNetwork. But if you can't contribute financially, it's not a big deal. Your viewership and listenership is enough for us. If you're watching the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Leave us a thumbs up on the video and hit that notification bell so you know when new episodes go live. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, leave the show a 5-star rating and a nice review. It really helps us in the long run. Remember, you can always find new episodes of our podcast, articles, reviews, and more on our website at bossrush.net. So now that's over with, we can talk about Uncharted. Uncharted Drake's Fortune, the 2007 PlayStation 3 game that launched an epic adventure that spans 6 games, so including the long forgotten Golden Abyss for Vita and the severely underrated Lost Legacy, which is the only game that does not star Nathan Drake. But we are here to talk about the first game, Drake's Fortune, written by Amy Hennig, who is currently working on a Captain America and Black Panther crossover action adventure game.
And can we just pause here and just take a moment of silence, or maybe not silence, for the fact that this is from 2007?
I know.
So it's over 10 many years.
It's almost 20 years old.
I know. It's like, wait, hold on, mathing. So I want to pause and be like, where were you in 2007? And I want to explain, like, for me, I graduated from high school and started my first year of college in 2007.
I was a sophomore in college. I had just moved home from Columbus and transferred schools. And yeah. I remember this issue of Game Informer, though. I got that. I got this issue. It was on the cover of Game Informer in college, and I was like, huh, PlayStation's making an Indiana Jones game. That's cool. And then I didn't have a PlayStation 3 at the time. I was still playing Kingdom Hearts on PS2 and God of War 2 on PS2, which was like a really contentious thing in the PlayStation community at the time, because PlayStation 3 was already out and they put God of War 2 out on PlayStation 2. Which at the time, a lot of the PlayStation 3s were backwards compatible with PS2, so I think that's what they were banking on. But
let's see.
Yeah,
I was, broke college student. I hung on to my PS2, kept replaying Kingdom Hearts. And then I think that was around, the Wii was about a year old, so I eventually got a Wii instead of a PS3. No rhyme intended. So I kind of missed out on that generation. Therefore, I kind of missed the launch of Uncharted. How about you, Pat? Where were you and what were you playing back then?
I was working at GameStop back then.
Ooh.
Yep. Oh,
do you remember?
I don't remember Uncharted being that big when it came out.
Did you ask everybody what console they wanted it on? Like when somebody... Never mind.
Nah, unfortunately, the only one that people wanted was Mario on the PlayStation.
It's me of this. I think I told Pat this. Sidebar on my work last night. First person... colleague, co-worker there was like, oh my gosh, Zelda! I love Zelda. I played Zelda when I was a little girl. I'm like, no way. She goes, I love Zelda on the PlayStation. I'm like,
yikes.
Yep.
I kept my mouth shut because I didn't want to over-nerdify myself.
And I told her that she should be forgiven as long as she's beautiful.
No.
Nope.
Anyway.
That's an unforgivable thing. You're fired. That'd be a good boss rush topic, though. Like, actually sitting down and explaining the difference between first, second, and third party, because I think a lot of people don't understand that. Like, the general audience probably doesn't understand that. Uncharted, though. I got my PlayStation 3 in 2008. And it was 2009, because I bought it for God of War 3, and I ended up getting God of War 3, and then there was a Uncharted dual pack when Uncharted 2 came out. It had 1 and 2 in it. So I ended up buying those 3 games. And I remember not really liking the first game a whole lot on the PlayStation 3. They were trying to do all that stuff with the 6-axis controller, because that's what came with my PlayStation 3. No rumble. That thing felt like, you think the Wii U gamepad feels bad in your hand. The 6-axis controller feels like you're not holding anything in your hand. And then they had the gyroscope that you were balancing on, and you had to aim your grenades with the 6-axis and everything. So I do, before we get really deep into this, I want to shout out Blue Point for really. I played the PS4 remaster, which I assume all three of us probably played that version.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Got to give it to Blue Point for going in and fixing a lot of the mechanics in these games to make them all feel cohesive and coherent. Because the one thing I do remember is that the controls really changed in Uncharted 2 compared to Uncharted 1. And Uncharted 2, I think, is where a lot of people kind of fell in love with the series. That the train scene at the opening for Uncharted 2 is just awesome. But Uncharted 1, I remember when I booted it up for the first time, it was like really interesting. And we kind of talked about this in our group chat where, again, we're going to do about 5 to 10 minutes of non-spoilers here, and then we'll deep dive into the game. This is the game that I circled that really started that cinematic gaming experience. Again, there have been games that have tried to do it before, right? Like, I think maybe Resident Evil 4 tried a little bit, and there were some games before this, like Gears of War. I remember really trying. Halo 2 tried, but this was
God
the
of
one
War
that
was
really
also
felt
one
like
of those that tried pretty hard too.
Yeah. But I just remember this was the first game that actually felt like you were playing like a blockbuster movie, in terms of the voice acting and the character interaction and the witty jokes that were being thrown around. And it was interesting. And I told you guys that this game feels so ahead of its time and so archaic at the same time. But what did you guys think of it, Pat? I'm gonna go your way first.
Wow. Oh man, I wasn't
All
ready
these
for
years
that.
later.
Thrown off guard now.
Honestly, it was. I remember the very first time I played Uncharted. I borrowed a friend's PlayStation, and I had the PS Now back in the day.
Ooh.
Yeah, this was after PS4 came out, but my friend had the PS3, and I'd let him borrow. I forget what I'd let him borrow, but he let me borrow his PS3, and so I played Uncharted for the first time that way, and it was interesting. The controls definitely weren't something that got to me. Like the action felt a little rough. Mostly because, and this is still a problem even in the new version, you shoot a bad guy, you have to be so freaking precise and able to get a headshot. And because if you shoot like their neck, for example, that's just considered a body hit, even though, most people would probably just drop dead in real life. And also, the bad guys' movements were just so, like, when they jumped out cover, they jumped out of cover. Like, you.
Yeah, they do. They're nimble.
And then you're like trying to like follow them with the gun, and they seem to run faster than you can actually turn. And the combat needed a lot of work still. But I will say I do thoroughly enjoy the set pieces that both this Uncharted had as well as the future Uncharted. I always loved exploration and adventure games like Tomb Raider, God of War, where you can kind of just like check out the scenery and feel like you're actually going around and exploring these like jungles and these ruins, and like that was part of the magic for Uncharted for me, was to explore, to find those little like treasure pieces, or just to kind of see like just the scenery in general. And I will also say another thing that I fell in love with this game is the music. Like, this game has absolutely beautiful music. The theme song is one that can get stuck in your head. It fits the genre quite well. And also the banter between the characters. That was also pretty nice. It felt very organic and fluid for the most part.
Yeah, I think we I think we all also have to remind ourselves that the series they did before this was Jack and Daxter,
And
and,
Sly Cooper.
they didn't do Sly Cooper.
Yeah, they did.
No, Sucker Punch did Sly Cooper. They did Jack X Racing, Combat Racing.
I thought they'd had Sly as well.
No, they did Crash before
That's
that.
what I'm thinking. I'm sorry.
It's
It's
not okay.
Crash
You're fired.
and Jax.
You call yourself a gamer. But I mean, the point is like their previous work was not a third person action adventure game. It was they were platformers, and I mean, I guess Jack 2 and 3 had a little bit of shooting in it, but it wasn't like, real shooting.
They all had those two did have some pretty deep stories though. Like Jax 1 didn't have much of a story, but Jax 2 and 3, holy shit, that's literally night to day.
Yeah. Jack and Daxter though, that first game. What a game. What a great platformer. I would say it's better than any Nintendo platformer that came out that generation. Throw that out there.
Ooh, damn fighting words.
I know.
Not from me,
Fighting
but
words. I mean, Donkey Kong 64 was pretty legit. And Mystical Ninja starring Gomon, even though that was
those are N64 games though. Jack and Daxter was I mean, you're going up against Mario Sunshine, which was like I don't know why people like that game. I'm not gonna lie. That's
well, at least when you make that comparison to Jack and Daxter, I can understand. I love that game.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. But anyway, I actually had a question since I obviously played Uncharted for this, but I'm the only one that didn't play it back then. Where was Tomb Raider and even Indiana Jones around that time? Like, was Indiana Jones kind of done with games because I remember there was one that came out in N64, and then I know there was Tomb Raider on PS1.
The Emperor's Tomb, Indiana Jones and the Emperor's Tomb came out on Xbox, the original Xbox in I want to say 2004 or 5. So there was one recently, and then the Staff of Kings came out on Wii in 2008, which was Indiana Jones. Tomb Raider
was in the middle of a trilogy.
Yeah, that was
okay.
I think Tomb Raider Legend, Anniversary, and Underworld was the trilogy that came out during that time, which were really good, but they weren't like, they were based off the classic Tomb Raider. They're not like they're not like Uncharted or the Tomb Raider reboot that happened in 2013.
Yeah. I agree they were more classic, but they were modern classic. Like, not the tank controls that Tomb Raider 1 through 3 were.
No, I actually really love Tomb Raider Legend. I think that game is extremely well done for the time. And that was about the time when Crystal Dynamics took over that franchise, I think, because it was core design before that.
Okay, so it almost seems like we were kind of in a golden period, so to speak, of those adventuring, treasure hunting type games, albeit all three kind of had their own way of expressing it, right? Because I think you guys explained to me, because I'm not as experienced with Tomb Raider, where that's kind of more puzzle heavy, and Uncharted's more like action-y and all those wonderful made-up adjectives I just used.
Yeah, and the Indiana Jones games, as much as I like them, they're not great. Emperor's Tomb was okay, but the Wii game was not good. You had to use the Wii remote for the whip. It was
The thought was there. Like I get it. When I imagine, I'm like, oh, that's cool, but I can see how in execution it might not have been pulled off well.
Yeah.
As long as the nunchuck made the whipping sound.
Yeah.
And you didn't hurl the nunchuck at the TV, and you kept that strap on your wrist.
Yep. Yep. Strap it on. That's what they say.
I kind of want to get back into that second Tomb Raider trilogy after playing Tomb Raider 1. It's like, because Tomb Raider 1 just isn't as fun.
Yeah. I wish they would I wish they would re-release that trilogy. They released a trilogy pack on PlayStation 3 and then never re-released it.
Mm-hmm. They're all backwards compatible on the Xbox, though.
They are. That is true. They sure are, and I own them all. I also own Tomb Raider Legend on the GameCube, which is an extremely hard to find version of the game, which I'm very proud of.
What's crazy is that there were 4 Tomb Raiders that came out on the 360.
I know. Isn't that nuts?
And now we look at games today, and it's like, you're lucky if you get one game in a generation.
I mean, you look at Naughty Dog, though. They put out 4 games on the PlayStation 3, right? The 3 Uncharted games, and then The Last of Us. And then The Last of Us Remastered. Within like a 7-year span, they put out 5 games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and now, but look at PlayStation 5 now. What has Naughty Dog actually released that is an original or a new title?
Yeah, I mean, nothing, right? I mean, that's kind of the big... Yeah. So that's, I mean, The Last of Us Part 3 will come out at the end of the generation and be the swan song, and that trilogy will be available on PlayStation 5, and everybody can play it. And so, yeah, I'm excited for another Uncharted game, though, especially the rumor. The reason I think this was put on vote is because there are rumors of a remake of this first game coming at some point. And they also kind of teased the 5th game in the series, which would star a character that appears in the 4th game, which we won't spoil for those who haven't played it. But Uncharted, we're going to start getting into spoilers here. Overall thoughts before we get into spoilers. I really enjoyed this game. I think it is a great foundation because at least, Pat, you and I know what's to come after this game.
Oh, yeah. 2 is hailed, obviously, as like one of the best ones.
Yeah, 2's the best. In my opinion, 2's my favorite. But this was a great foundation. I think this was a great learning experience for Naughty Dog for when they get further into the series. And some of our complaints with this game, I think, are ameliorated throughout as the series progresses. You know, Stephanie, you brought up the endless waves of enemies just around every corner.
They're very sudden. Goodness gracious.
Unfortunately, that does not get fixed in number 2. In fact, it might actually get worse because then the enemies start bringing in rocket launchers.
Oh, gosh.
But Stephanie, initial kind of final thoughts before we get into spoilers, spoiler-free thoughts before we get into them?
Yeah, probably nothing surprising, but overall, I was impressed by the game. One of those franchises that it was purely a timing thing that I missed it. Very cinematic, beautiful, took lots of screenshots. Despite some of the rough edges, it was still fun to play. I know we talked about on the Boss Rush podcast. Don't get me wrong, I love me a nice open world game, but sometimes I just want a nice path through a nice story, and Uncharted Drake's Fortune took me through that straight and narrow. So.
Yeah.
And great characters. I love the characters. I think that's part of like what also pulled me into this game versus like any other action game. Great characters.
Yeah. Pat, any final thoughts before we get into spoilers?
Well, by the time you get through 3, you might want those open worlds back, and that's why number 4 comes around and gives you some pretty nice environments to explore later.
Yeah. And then Lost Legacy ends up being, some of it is actually pretty open.
That section in Lost Legacy was awesome.
Yeah. So, all right, we're going to get into
the temple.
Yeah. We're going to get into spoilers here.
Spoilers for an almost 20-year-old game.
Yeah. So if you haven't played it and you want to come back and listen, after the game is very short. I think I beat it in probably 6 or 7 hours.
It's about a 6-hour game.
Yeah, I did some light exploring, picked up some treasures, but I really just was playing it for the story. I didn't play it on a hard difficulty mode. I think I played it on easy. Just because I wanted to fly through it, and I still died a lot, especially at the jet ski scene, the jet ski segment. Yeah. Oh my gosh, hated it. that scene, I'm like, you guys played Gears of War and you guys liked the vehicle scene in Gears of War 1, which they didn't bring back for any of the other games, but I'm like, oh my gosh, are you kidding? This jet
So I
ski.
appreciated the change of pace, but I definitely died a lot, and I just had to kind of cheese a lot of the sections.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was. So the game opens up. So the whole premise of the game is Nathan Drake, the titular character, is a a descendant of Sir Francis Drake, the famous explorer, and he is on a what is it? He's part of this kind of docu series that Elena Fisher is filming, and has this partner Victor Sullivan, who is kind of a shady character. He's like the guy that makes all the bad decisions, but has a heart of gold type of character. Cigar chomping,
Or he has like all these connections, but usually the
Yeah.
connections get him in trouble.
Yeah, which is
That's
kind of
best
what
connections.
which is kind of what happens in this game, right?
Yeah.
So you open up the scene on the boat where Drake is scuba diving. He finds the chest with the diary in it. And this is kind of like the tutorial area where they teach you how to shoot and pick up weapons and melee combat and stuff. I thought the melee combat left a lot to be desired, especially because everybody carries guns, and it's really hard to run up to somebody and punch them while they're shooting at you.
Well, even like the brutal combo that they keep on recommending, it's like it's just easier to spam the punch button than it is to do the brutal combo, because they will most likely smack you when you do the heavy hit.
Yeah.
Nope. 100%, because I was just like, all right, I got to go right for the brutal combo. And I'm like, why isn't this really any more effective?
Yeah. Yeah. So that scene on the boat is kind of the tutorial level. I like, this is where you kind of get to know their personalities too a little bit, where Drake is kind of snarky and Elena is very into her job and very focused on getting this footage for her docuseries. And then Sully comes and rescues them from pirates, essentially.
Basically it was pirates. Yeah.
Yeah. Not like Yar pirates, but like modern pirates.
With eye patch? No, these are modern day pirates.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so Sully and Drake are talking about this diary, and Elena is kind of talking to her bosses on the phone, kind of telling them that she has a bigger story than what she initially went out to do. And the game kind of opens up with Drake and Sully abandoning her. Which is,
I mean, with good reason. They didn't want to bring her into harm's way, and plus they honestly thought she would get in the way because she doesn't quite have the experience as they do.
Well, that, and didn't they not want her to like be able to publicize certain information about like treasure, right? Pretty much.
Yeah.
That would have everyone pretty much, they'd be right there in center.
Exactly. And I think we're going to talk about characters in a little bit, but if I could have a quick sidebar, and I don't want people coming for me, but Elena Fisher, by the end of the game, loved her as a character. She's great. But I'll admit, in the beginning part, it's kind of maybe it's because as a female, I kind of scrutinize the characters that are female in games too. Just, I'm a girl, and when I see females in video games, I'm a bit more, I scrutinize them more. Same way of how I kind of felt with Princess Peach when we talked about Mario RPG, where Elena Fisher, in the beginning only, I was like, great, it's that stereotype of the woman that is a news reporter, because it's either a news reporter, a writer, like something in there, and she's so into her job, she'll do anything to get that story, which again, like, it isn't like a bad thing. Like, it's in a sense, a positive role for a woman. It's just, I chuckle because I feel like that's a common trope for a female character.
I cannot wait for you to get to meet Chloe.
Oh my God, yeah. We have to do Uncharted 2 as a book club. Maybe we'll do that after Hellblade. Just because, you're gonna you're gonna like Chloe for a lot of reasons.
But yeah, that's just my quick thing. I trust me, Elena. She grew on me. I love her like as a character, but just the initial like, oh, here's another news reporter woman that's so into her job and will do anything to do it. Yeah, heard this a million times. That's all.
Yeah. I do like, though, like you said, I know that's kind of at the beginning, but throughout the game, like Drake hands her a gun at one point and is like, do you know how to use this? She's like, yeah, point and shoot, just like a camera. And she like can handle herself. She fights off some enemy. Like this was at a time, aside from Lara Croft, where like the damsel in distress kind of character was the female archetype, right? So
exactly. It wasn't like Leon from Resident Evil 4.
Yeah. I can have my dad put you on my detail. Oh, that footage sticks out in my mind because we used it for the bossies. But yeah, so Elena, we should probably talk about Drake kind of first, I guess, just because he is the main character. Nolan, played by Nolan North. You can definitely tell this was the first go around for Drake, because I did feel like at the beginning of the game, Nolan North kind of felt like he was feeling out the character a little bit. And by the end of the game, he was really feeling comfortable. I understand a lot of the snarky jokes that throughout the game. I don't know if some of them hit because of the timing, because it's a video game and they're dealing with video game animations, and like some of the jokes didn't hit. Some of them did hit, and
one of the jokes
but overall,
really hard, literally.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm always careful. Oh, I did not see that coming.
Yeah. But overall, I think the performance of Nathan Drake is very well done. And obviously over time it only gets better. So Drake is kind of like the I don't know, stereotypical kind of treasure hunter and very Indiana Jones-esque. I mean, Amy Hennig said as much. She wanted to make an Indiana Jones game, and this was the closest she was ever going to get at that point. There's a lot of nods to Indiana Jones throughout the game. You know, a lot of Nazi stuff, and a lot of you know, there is an Easter egg of a fedora somewhere in the game. You do have to look for it. I think it's in the that library room with the hidden door before you go into those catacombs. There's a fedora in there. But he's looking for the treasure that Drake was looking for, which ends up being El Dorado. He's very smart. He's very he's very good at climbing.
Yeah, he's climbing and swinging and all that stuff. Got good finger strength.
Yeah. What did everybody think of Drake?
I mean, you covered basically everything of it. He's the charismatic character that at least will keep you entertained as the story goes along.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know he had a kind of a swagger, but I didn't feel like it was too much. So for me, it was just right, and I really enjoyed playing as him.
He's cool without trying to be cool, which I think every guy wants to be. Is like, I want to be cool without seeming cool.
Trying too hard, yeah.
Yeah.
He nerds out on history.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just cute to see.
Yeah. Also.
Oh, and sorry to interrupt.
Oh, I was just gonna say it's the very the old school like 80s and 90s Bond type character where men want to be him and women want to be with him type of cool, adage. It feels like. So, what were you gonna say, Steph?
Oh no, I think what part of I wouldn't say relatable because I'm not a treasure hunter, was when he realizes at some point the kind of danger that everyone was going to be in if they kept pursuing El Dorado. He's like, I'm getting out of here. Like, we're going home. And it was Elena that's like, no, I'm not leaving. So like, I almost kind of expected the opposite behavior. So yeah, he's cool, this treasure hunter guy, but he's also a regular dude that doesn't want to die.
Yeah.
I appreciated that.
Yeah.
After he's killed his 100th bad guy, by the time he starts, getting cold feet.
True, but
Yeah. So other than Drake, there are only really 6 real characters in this game. You have obviously Drake, you have Sully and Elena. Those are kind of like the good guys, and then you have Gabriel Roman, who's kind of like the leader of the bad guys or whatever. The stereotypical rich, nicely dressed kind of British guy who's the bad guy. Very movie villain-esque.
Yes.
And then you kind of have his 2 kind of second in command people in Navarro, who's we'll talk about him later, who actually ends up betraying a lot of characters. And then you have Eddie Raja, who's kind of like the dumb, I want the money, I'll do whatever I can get to get rich. And then we see what happens to him. So Sully is kind
Just
of...
remember, Drake, if I die, I just want you to know I really hate your guts.
Hate you.
Oh man. So Sully is obviously Drake's kind of, you would say, father figure / mentor / partner in all this. Sully is cool. He's just a cool guy. He's wearing like the bowling shirts and chomping on the cigar, and we better hit big on this because yeah, we better hit on this because I owe a lot of people money, type thing.
He's conquesting in both treasure and women.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got that fun uncle vibes.
Yeah.
Did I ever tell you about the time I did this? You just talked about it. Well, you guys aren't even listening. That's why I have to go back and repeat myself.
It is kind of, I didn't forget, but I kind of forgot how much Sully is actually not in this game. I forgot how early that first kind of scene with him happens, where after the you're exploring why the Nazi U-boat is in the Amazon. You kind of come out of that, and the people Sully made the deal with, which is Roman and Navarro, they shoot him, and you think he's dead, right? You kind of just think Sully's dead, and if you haven't played the rest of the series before, you kind of just assume that he's dead, and you and Elena are in charge of getting out of there. And then he doesn't show back up until like the last third of the game, maybe. Where you kind of find him in that kind of monastery cathedral type place, and where you have to like shift the statues around to open the special door to get proceed through the game. But it turns out that he had the journal, and he was leading Roman to the treasure, but he was also trying to lead him to a spot where Drake would be without having him find the treasure specifically.
Well, yeah, I mean, there was no intentional betrayal. Like, Roman meant to kill Sully, but Sully really got lucky with the, where Roman shot just happened to be where the journal was.
Yeah, that's one tough journal.
Yeah, and then after that, Sully convinced him, hey, you're never going to be able to find the treasure without me. So Roman decides to take him in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was very... I'm glad like Sully ended up being like the good guy, right? I mean, at the beginning you could kind of think it's going either way. Mm-hmm. And when you see him again before you actually meet up with him, you could also think it could go either way. And you still think maybe he could betray you again at some point.
Yep.
But overall, I'm glad Sully is kind of the good guy. Do we want to say anything else about Elena? I think she's a great female character. Again, especially at the time, not really like any other character that was in games at the time. She's just a great character. So the bad guys, Gabriel Roman, we kind of already hit on him a little bit. The kind of rich,
Generic white rich man.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
almost
British
kind of
one.
like there's really nothing else to say about that. I'm like, yeah.
kind of one-dimensional a little bit.
Mhm.
Definitely reminds you of like the mid 2000s blockbuster villains of. I want to say the guy with the slicked back hair in one of the Tomb Raider movies.
Rich white villain, millionaire villain.
Yeah. So,
They're the only ones with the money that can organize private military.
yeah, that scale too. Oh man.
It's funny how adding a British accent makes it like, oh, it must be like a really, really rich white person. I don't know why
Yeah.
we think that.
Comes from establishment.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yes. And then Navarro is kind of like his second in command, who's also kind of a treasure hunter, but also kind of this. He's kind of a dick. And spoilers for the end of the game, but Navarro actually betrays Roman when they find El Dorado and tells him that the real treasure's inside, and ends up, giving him that crazy zombie disease and kills him. And Navarro ends up becoming the bad guy, the main villain the rest of the game.
All 10 to 15 minutes of it at that point.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But also like I forgot about all of that when I was playing through this game. I forgot that I thought Navarro was the villain. And I was like, maybe that's 2. Maybe he gets away. Maybe that's the second game. But then like I totally forgot that he betrays Roman, and you have to chase him onto the boat, and that big showdown on the boat.
What's funny is as you get achievements and collect treasures, since we're all playing the remaster collection, whatever, you get like rewards throughout. And I would occasionally check, and I ended up just using the Naughty Dog skin where he's just wearing the Naughty Dog shirt. Majority of the stuff I couldn't access till after I beat the game, but another skin was Navarro, but because I never played the game before and it was still early in the game, I'm like, what is that? And by clicking on it, you turn into the character Navarro, and as you can imagine how confused I was because I didn't know who that character was yet. I'm like, who this?
It's funny, in Uncharted 4 you unlock Donut Drake, which is just a fat version of Nathan Drake, and it's really funny.
What? Oh my gosh. I need to play that game just for that.
Yeah,
You will
I don't
build
know
up to that game.
Yeah. I kind of want to play through this whole series now. I really enjoyed my time with this game.
I want to go through Tomb Raider.
Yeah, we'll probably get to that at some point too.
Why isn't there enough time in our life to play what's new, but also to play what's old over?
Because adulting sucks.
Yeah. Let's all win the lottery. Let's all become really famous YouTubers, streamers, whatever. And then we can do that. So, and then Eddie Raja is kind of the last character. He's just kind of like a peon. We're going to use you to get what we want, but you don't really know it type character.
He's basically the head of the meat army.
Yeah, essentially, yes. I think
Before they start bringing in the heavy artillery of Navarro and Roman, you're dealing with the thugs of Raja.
Yeah. I think the jail scene with him is really funny. When Elena kind of breaks Drake out of jail. I think that scene's really funny.
How much trouble can one woman be?
Yeah. Yeah, it was really good. I actually really like the Jeep scene too, where Eddie and his thugs are chasing them through the woods. I thought that was really fun, shooting the grenades and using the kind of like the Gatling gun to mow them all down.
Yes,
that scene was really fun, especially because like you didn't have to drive, unlike the jet skis. Like I really thought that was really fun. It was a great way to break up the action. It ended in a really great scene, a very Indiana Jones-esque scene where you think you're trapped because the bridge is broken, and then you just end like Drake just ends up driving off the edge of the bridge into the water, which is a really fun scene. I like that whole scene, and Eddie kind of gets pissed that he lost them, and so also Eddie meets his end in a very sad and gross way. So very sad. Sorry, Eddie. If you want to see how you can become a Patreon producer, head on over to patreon.com/BossRushNetwork. The Patreon producers for this month are Adriel Munger, Austin Campbell, Celeste Roberts, Christian S., Sana Dirrig, Francisco Santillan, Matthew Keel, and Todd Oxtra. Thanks for your continued support of the Boss Rush Network. So yeah, that's the characters. I really think focusing on this small cast was a good idea. The story was very simple but very fun, very pulpy, and yeah.
It's almost kind of like when you go to a restaurant. I know it's not always the case, but sometimes when a restaurant has a smaller, simpler menu, I feel like the quality of food is better. Just, you know.
There's more time to focus on that food.
Yeah.
Exactly. So.
To prepare it. To season it well.
Exactly.
Yeah. So let's jump into some of the story beats, if you will. We kind of talked about the opening and the submarine scene with Sully. So after you kind of escape with Elena, you escape to this small island in the Pacific, and you're kind of shot down, and Drake kind of pushes Elena out earlier and he's trying to fly the plane, and then he's like, what am I doing? Type thing. And, you kind of make your way through the jungle to find Elena filming this fortress that you end up fighting hundreds of bad guys in.
Now, speaking of set pieces, that's a great one.
Yeah. That whole thing is great.
But
you
really explore every inch of that fortress.
You really do. You really do.
It's like, this is a small level, but it takes a while because you're literally first floor, second floor, basement, first floor, second.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great level design.
Yeah. It's really cool how that level design feels like you're in this open space, but it's really forcing you into this linear path through the space. That's a very good level design, like Stephanie said. I think it was done well. You have these open spaces, of course, which we kind of talked about the combat on the Boss Rush podcast, where like you're going down this corridor doing a little bit of light platforming, and then you come to this big arena shaped area in the level with boxes and rocks and tumbling towers, and you're like, oh, must be battle time. And you just see guns and grenades on these crates loading up on ammo and stuff, and you get that about, you'll solve a puzzle, you'll do some platforming, you'll shoot some guys, and then it kind of rotates in that or in a various version of that order. So yeah, what do we want to hit on next? I think can we just talk about the jet skis real quick? It's really bothering me.
Well, we'll get there, because I think of story beat wise, when they get to the fortress and essentially you're finding El Dorado, like El Dorado's true location, and I believe the jet ski was going from one location through to the drowned city or something like that, right?
The idea was that when they got to the fortress, they found out there were remnants of Drake at the fortress, and they looked, and it's like, well, if you were going to move a giant ass statue, where would it have to go through? Oh, look, there's the port over there with the customs office. That's clear, clearly if there's going to be any signs of this, it's there.
Yeah. And so like it's kind of fun to see like Francis Drake's kind of path through the story also.
Mhm.
Because
I got
you
to
do
complain about that, but I'll
you
save
do
it after
no
later. Huh?
tell me.
Tell you. It'll fine. I can tell you, but it's gonna jump through a whole bunch of the story quick. Because you do end up finding Francis Drake, which makes me wonder how the hell did he write all that information about his last place, get his diary into a coffin in the middle of the Pacific Ocean? It's like, how? You're dead.
Because story plot reasons.
I mean, you can't even
Yeah.
say that he had people bring it to him because he literally writes down in a note, all my companions are dead.
Yeah.
Fair point.
Fair.
Very
Fair.
fair point.
But also story reasons.
You find
You
his
need the-
diary.
You need the MacGuffin, okay? You need the MacGuffin, and it happened to be a diary.
That
So
somehow he wrote and got all the way halfway across the world.
yeah, but
In the
also
Pacific Ocean and remain dry.
yeah. Also remember all of his companions turned into zombies to fight the Nazis. So there's also that.
See, that's more believable though than the journal making it to the coffin. That he supposedly created himself to fake his death.
Yeah. Makes sense to me.
With the journal that he was writing up until he died.
Yeah. Makes sense. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Checks out.
Yeah.
All
Checks
right
out
then.
to me. Checks out to me.
It's good with you guys, then who am I to argue about that?
Yeah.
That's
and
how I was planning my fake death.
Yeah. Yeah. He also died alone in this massive room, and he's the only one in there. Sure.
Mhm.
Yeah. Massive room. So, you know.
Also,
Yeah.
you telling me the Nazis just left him there? They took the statue because you literally see the video in the Nazi part with Nate or with Francis sitting right against the statue.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, I'm sure
I
he has
mean,
some good treasures too on him.
to be fair, are you going to move a dead body, or are you just going to take the treasure?
I don't know. I mean, Nazis could have figured like there might have been some good shit on this body.
It could have been, but there's not. So, all right, where are we at in the story?
Jet skis.
Jet skis, right?
Also, how did he have skin still? There's so many fucking rats in that damn tomb.
Oh boy, here I don't know,
And
man.
yet he was still immaculately groomed in his beard.
Yeah, he had a good beard. Okay, what's
so thick.
what's
For a
the
dead
problem
person.
here, Pat? What's the problem?
He's just jealous of his facial hair.
I am. That is a very nice beard.
Very bushy beard.
It was so like well groomed for being over like 400 years old.
Yeah, it's a
Well,
great
maybe it was
beard.
perfectly groomed the day he died, and then the hair stops growing, so it's just there. I don't know what happens to hair
I
hundreds
don't
of
think
years
that's how
later.
death works.
Yeah, it's like, wait a minute, hold on. I don't think that made sense.
Sure does. That's exactly how death works.
And we're talking about being in a tomb full of those weird zombie creatures. How is he not fully eaten?
Maybe they only like the skin parts.
Or maybe
Which is
they
so rad.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, it's like every zombie movie where you see zombies munching on people, but then they don't really eat the whole person. They just bite their neck and then move to the next person.
Well, you know what? I could actually come up with a good excuse for that one because Nathan probably killed himself. And maybe he was dead, so the zombies didn't really have any interest in him because he was cold meat by then.
Yeah, it's not fresh.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that part I can retract that. Why he's still alive or fresh when there were zombies there.
All right, we're good.
Mm-hmm.
Jet ski time.
Yeah. Jet ski time. This whole scene where you're trying to get to the sunken city and you end up there's just a jet ski sitting there. First of all, I mean, why? It's just a random jet ski sitting there for you to ride. Also, there's too many explosive barrels. Why are there like 6,000 explosive barrels? And you have to shoot them all, or you will die. You will die. And then there's enemies just hanging out on these broken buildings. How did they get there? Why are they just standing on the porch? Where's the rest of the buildings that they're standing on? How do they get up there? There's a lot of questions in this scene. Okay, there's questions. Also, the archways.
Oh, sorry.
I'm starting to think this story is unrealistic.
These archways with no bridges. There's just guys up there with rocket launchers now. Like, you know, not to poke holes in the theories of this game here. But not that we haven't already talked about zombies and thousands of miles away diaries and, Drake killing hundreds of people, maybe even thousands throughout the adventure. But these guys just climb random broken buildings and shoot you and with whatever weapons they can find.
With deadly accuracy. The ones with, I think the gun's called the Desert 5, the one with the laser pointer.
The Magnum Desert 5. Desert Eagle.
Yeah. Oh, man, these things. The jet ski part was the part that I had the most frustration with. Just based on you having to stop and shoot the barrels, and the enemies also blended in very well with the environment, especially if you were starting to get hurt already. I didn't really care for the screen turning black and white when your health was low. I know they opted for something different than the traditional, like at the time, the Call of Duty, your screen is red around the borders, or Gears did that also, but it also made it a lot harder to find the enemies when you were almost dead. And so it also made it harder for me to stay alive. So that was
and what Pat mentioned earlier is like the hitboxes. Like I swear there were times where I'm pretty sure I hit them and they just kept shooting at me. I'm like, why isn't this killing them?
Yeah. But we eventually get to the sunken city, right?
Sunken City or Drowned City?
Is it the Drowned City? Sunken City is a game.
Yeah.
Drowned City.
Yeah.
You're right. And you have to ride that zip line over. Just this zip line hanging out in the middle of this ancient place.
Yeah.
So
they didn't bother just taking the jet ski and literally going around to the dock with the open access and a boat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I think we're poking a lot of holes in this plot. A lot of unnecessary platforming. Although I can't tell if this game wants to be a third-person shooter or a platformer. The platforming also isn't amazing, coming from a studio who specialized in platformers at the time. So yeah, that's so when we get into the Drowned City, is this where we kind of leave Elena behind for a little bit?
Yep.
And then we meet back up with her later at the monastery?
Nope. You still meet her at the customs office. Or the customs building.
You're basically leaving her for like big fighting sessions.
Yeah, right. You're telling her you're the one who's looking for the boat and she should just stay put and she will go and get some action scenes.
Oh, yeah, because this was around the time where he wanted to call it quits and go home.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they were up on that balcony together and he's just like, we should go. We should leave. So I'm trying to think of where the story goes next. I'm kind of fuzzy at this part.
When they finally meet back just before the boat, which Nathan was going to steal, but then she's like, "You really have to see this." She shows him footage of Sully coming out of the helicopter that just flew over. So now it's like, okay, well, also the boat speeds away. So they're like, okay, well, we can still either try to get off this island or we could go and rescue Sully, who has clearly, upriver.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys find another jet ski on the opposite side of the building, and then go up a river with waterfalls.
That one was tough.
And barrels and other people shooting at you. And if you were trying to get the achievement, you had to do it in like 5 minutes.
What? Yeah, no thanks.
No, I thought I did good, and I still didn't get the achievement. And then you reach the monastery.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Very creepy-ass monastery.
Yeah, what a weird monastery. And you have to like fight this military group through the monastery, and then you have to like ring the bells at the same time to open the secret door, and then it gets real dark.
All that church just upset me, because those parts were like the hardest parts of the game for me. I felt.
Yeah, especially like when you get to the platforming parts of like, you're jumping across these pillars and on the ceiling, and then you get to like the swinging, flaming, very video gamey flaming torches that just keep going.
Those torches,
forever.
yeah. Oh, yeah. I got knocked off so many times with those things.
Yeah. I definitely died a lot there too. And then this is where we kind of find Sully, right? We're coming up on where we find Sully.
We didn't go into the church yet. Sully was in the library, and that's kind of where you guys head to first. And then you guys get separated again very briefly because, you guys thought it would be safe if those two stayed behind, and Nathan went and looked for the clear path to the treasure. It's funny how they're like, oh yeah, the treasure's over here. No, the treasure's over there. The treasure's over here. And, honestly, like, when you're like, I don't know, maybe a third into the monastery level, you see the giant pit in the graveyard, which, funny part is, the treasure's literally right down in the center of that pit. And it's like, did no one even bother to just look down in a giant pit? Because then when they find the treasure, they just drop a helicopter net right down there and grab it. It's like, really? How do you guys not see this? It's right there. The pit where your base headquarters, whatever command center, is literally 10 feet from the pit that the treasure is in.
Right.
Hey, sometimes we all overlook the obvious.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yep. Another plot point.
So we go through the secret door in the library. We go to the monastery. We find this is where we find Francis Drake.
Yeah, one of the secrets the monastery, it's actually the little mausoleum in the graveyard. That leads to the maze with the platform, or the who's that famous artist with the staircases?
I forget.
Staircase artist.
Usher, and like MC Usher or something.
MC Usher. Yes.
Usher.
I was like, Usher. Usher.
Usher. Yeah, it's where like everything is like staircases going everywhere, and and you finally solve that, and then you find the you run into Eddie, because Eddie decides rather than go through the traditional methods, he's just going to blow holes in everywhere. And you finally find Sir Francis Drake in this big circular room. And while you're trying to figure out your way out, Elena is trying to get a rope down, and all of a sudden Drake and Eddie hear weird noises.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So once we find Francis Drake, Elena has the great idea of getting out of there.
Mhm.
And this is where,
And also, I'm like, Drake, yeah, your Drake is like, hey, he died not achieving his goal, and just kind of gets all like moody about it, and like, I don't want this stupid ring anymore. He tosses it to Francis.
Yeah. So this is also where Eddie's faces his demise also, right? Because this is where you find this is where you're finding out the supernatural is happening, which is awesome. And as you are escaping these supernatural creatures, you find a kind of like a Nazi communication center that you kind of lock yourself in. You and Elena finds the elevator and the power is out. And so you're trying to find a way to the power supply. And you kind of leave Elena in there by herself, which is, I'll be right back, he says.
Well, I mean, he offered, but she's like, we both know I'm not going to make that jump. Because they're about, I don't know, 100 feet in a station that's like 3-4 floors high. She would have been pancake.
Yeah.
I gotta admit, this part was kind of creepy. Like, it didn't scare me, but I bet you if this was put in the hands of, I don't know, a developer that makes horror games, or if this genre bended into a horror game, this would have been creepy as hell.
Yeah. Yeah. But this is also where you find the Nazi footage of, the Spanish fighting the Nazis as the zombie creatures. And then you read the letter from one of the final Nazis to, be alive. And he wrote this letter and then he ends up, dying, I guess, I assume. And as you turn the power back on, you go back, you end up on the other side and you see that Roman has captured Elena, and Navarro is there. And so you and Sully are now on a mission to go save Elena, which happens to be where El Dorado is. And then this scene plays out where you and Sully find Elena, but then you end up getting caught as well, right? And you have to throw your guns in the pit, which is like a very Indiana Jones scene. This is a very Indiana Jones-esque scene.
It's almost like the exact ending of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Almost, sort of.
Except for less face melting.
Yeah, might as well melt though, because like that they zoom in on Roman's face and his eyes are gone. It was like very very like the Mummy from Brendan Fraser's Mummy-esque. Man, those movies are great.
They are.
And so you kind of you kind of save Elena, but also Drake they're airlifting El Dorado. Navarro is airlifting the El Dorado statue out of where it's being held because he wants to take it back and make money or do whatever bad guys do with
it's an important
treasure.
point, right? Because the whole thing is we all thought this was just pure gold money seeking, which was kind of Roman's intent. But Navarro says any fool would go out would sell this for gold. It's more of the what El Dorado can do by turning people into these supernatural strong zombies that can be controlled, kind of thing, more like a weapon, like weaponizing this.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I appreciate that, like kind of a twist in a commonly explored story trope. So
yeah. So you end up on the kind of like this large boat and you're finding your way to Navarro, and this big action kind of scene happens where it's full of quick time events, and you end up kind of the very end of this scene is very kind of terrifying and funny at the same time, right? Because you're fighting Navarro and you end up kind of knocking him out, but then he stands up, but Drake ends up pushing the helicopter into the into the water, and the rope grabs onto Navarro, and so he goes into the water, and then El Dorado kind of goes on top of him, and so Navarro kind of assume he's going to drown and die. But that's kind of it. Yep, it ends. Sully pulls up on a tiny boat. Drake and Elena say they have a bigger boat. And Sully says,
but I like this boat better.
Yeah, and then he uncovers a ton of treasure. And everybody goes on to be happily ever after until Uncharted 2. Did we miss anything?
I mean, you definitely covered the major plot points. I mean, did we explain why the Nazis were there to begin with, even though it's kind of obvious they were looking for El Dorado? They didn't realize it was cursed.
Yeah.
So here's another little story plot. How the hell did they build that giant ass base when there were Spanish zombies everywhere on that island?
I don't know.
The zombies could have been buried.
Okay, yeah.
They might have built it.
Maybe they were like all locked up in the tomb. Maybe that's...
Yeah.
Ha! Okay. All right.
Filled that plot hole.
You did fill that plot hole.
Filled it right up.
You packed it in.
Tee.
So yeah, Uncharted, Drake's Fortune. Overall, definitely a game of its time, but also kind of revolutionary in a lot of ways. This is definitely the game that you kind of circle and say, this is where Sony's kind of story-driven, single-player blockbuster experiences kind of started. I mean, you could almost argue God of War was that on PS2, but I think a lot of people kind of point at Drake's Fortune being that starting point. And obviously Uncharted 2 and God of War 3 and stuff that came after that, right? And then the rest is history. Now we have the Sony that is Sony.
Question.
Yeah.
Not story related, but because it was a combat heavy game, did you guys swap out guns frequently, or did you tend to favor one as long as you had the ammo for it?
I used the pistol a lot. I would swap out that secondary weapon quite a bit. I really liked the shotguns. I don't really care for the AK-47s. They're just kind of sloppy and whatever. The military kind of assault rifle was fun to use for a little bit. But I mostly liked the pistol because I liked trying to get those headshots. Mostly because in the bottom right-hand corner, it would tell you when you passed your friends on headshots and kills, and it was really fun. I think I ended up with like 800 and something kills at one point. I'm like, oh my gosh, I killed almost 1,000 people in this game. There are too many. That is too many enemies for a game that is 7 hours long.
How about you, Pat?
My favorites were definitely the Magnums. Like, a second I could get either the that one revolver that had 6 shots or the Desert 5. Those were always my guns of choice. But I was the opposite. I was not a fan of the shotguns because you literally had to be right next to the person when you're like next to death to shoot them.
Yeah.
Where the AK was a little more, accurate when trying to pop headshots from from cover.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Normally, in any other game that has firearm combat, I heavily favor shotguns. But in this game, you need close range, and if you even take a step close, they are really accurate with their with shooting you. So.
But I will say, other than the Magnum, my favorite gun was probably the sniper rifle.
Was it called like the Dragon something?
Yep, the Dragov or something.
Yeah.
And it's
nice.
That thing got some kick, and you can literally shoot any part of the body, and that person would die.
Yeah. Nice.
You guys rely on
3 bullets each.
Yeah. grenades?
I try.
Less
Yeah.
often than I wanted to, just because like any game like this with even remotely smart AI dodges the grenades, and at that point you're going to have to throw one in one area and then try to aim the other one to where they're going to dive, and then it's just like you're out of cover too long to where somebody else is already shooting you, and it just kind of felt like unless I was sneaking up on a group of people and tossed a grenade behind them, like I really didn't find a use for grenades. I found myself trying to shoot the barrels more than I was using the grenades.
Yeah. The grenades were at least somewhat useful when you fought the zombies because their behavior, they didn't care what the hell the grenade was. You know, you could throw it next to them and they wouldn't know what it is. You know, so I gotta give them props for at least having the humans be more human in that
Yeah.
nature. When they see the grenade, they run, as far as they can from it. Those creatures, you could actually get a few of them with grenades.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah. The only time I really found myself using assault weapons in a more I guess more than the pistol was when we started fighting the zombie creatures. Just because they're just always moving and so fast, and I didn't, aiming a pistol at those creatures would be like, what are you doing? You're dumb. But when I was just fighting generic human enemies, I was using the pistol a lot.
Yeah, I would say my least favorite weapon was the SMG. And they usually are in just about any game.
Yeah.
Is that the one that you only have a couple bullets and...
No, it's the really fast pistol.
Yeah. Like
Gotcha.
Yeah. Man, remember when Uzis were cool?
Yeah. They're always like super inaccurate and you waste the ammo so quickly. So they've never been my favorite type of gun, unfortunately.
Oh, yep. Sorry. Lack of sleep. Now I know what we're talking about. Yep. Okay.
Are there any other points we want to hit on before we kind of wrap this up?
So we talked about combat. How'd y'all fare with treasures? I don't think I broke half. In the beginning of the game, I really tried to go out of my way and find all of them. But then I think part of it was when I started dealing with nonstop enemies, I was kind of discouraged from further exploring. And also that silly room with the swinging chandeliers. I'm like, I just want to get out of here.
Yeah, I also think some of the treasures are locked behind different difficulty levels.
No, you can get them all.
I'm not 100% sure if that's...
No, you can get them all.
Can you?
Okay.
I don't...
I've gotten them all, and I've beaten it on normal.
Oh, well then, never mind. I thought that was part of... I ended up with 28 treasures, I think, at the end of the game. I did try to explore early on and try to find as many as I could, but once you get into combat and like, especially towards like, I would say in the middle of the game and you're like into the story and you're just like, I just want to progress through and see what's going on and see what happens. And also like the platforming and getting to certain places was getting kind of repetitive, and the game does not overstay its welcome at all. I think it ends at the perfect time. All these games are relatively short except for the fourth one, which that was my major complaint about the fourth one, is that it was way too long. It was about it could have been cut in half and been perfectly fine.
It's true. It's about twice as long as any of the other ones.
Yeah. There's also about 3 times where you think that game's about to end and then it opens up a new arc, and it's like, oh my gosh,
surprise.
Yeah. Overall, I really liked this game. It kind of renewed my interest in replaying through the series, which I've been kind of wanting to do for a while. I still think after playing one of the 5 kind of console games, I still think I like the current Tomb Raider trilogy better. But again, that's after one game, and I would like to play at least the rest of the trilogy at some point. Maybe even the 4th and Lost Legacy. Final thoughts on the game?
Yeah, if I had to choose between Tomb Raider and Uncharted, well, Uncharted definitely has the better characters. I still think Tomb Raider was probably the more fun of the two
Yeah.
games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I hate to say it, but again, it's just the timing of when I started playing games. The only Tomb Raider I actually played was the last one that was put out.
Shadows.
Shadow.
Yep.
Yeah, Shadow, and it was okay. And I don't think I picked the best one of the three.
Yours
So
was
I,
a little more open world of a Tomb Raider. Like I feel like for you, you would like the middle trilogy the
okay,
best because that is modern controls, but it's linear.
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah, so I don't think I can make a fair comparison, but just
Mm-hmm.
in this isolated experience, like you said, you guys nailed it, where it was ahead of its time back then. There's a lot of great things to still that you can actually enjoy this game in 2024, but there are definitely some outdated aspects of it. But I like it enough where I am interested in playing 2 and 3, where a lot of times when I buy like collector packs of like old games and they put them all into one. I usually just say I'll just play the first one and I'll say that I had enough. No,
Mm-hmm.
this is one where I'm like, you know what? Maybe not now because I just kicked off Hellblade. I will find. I believe I will find myself back to Uncharted too.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
I definitely say do that because honestly, one is probably the worst of the series. Well,
it,
okay, never mind. Golden Abyss is what I hear is the worst of the series, but out
yeah,
of
but
the
that was a
main line,
PSP game or a Vita game, right? I mean,
yeah.
I
And
uh I would definitely say one is definitely the worst of the games. My personal favorite is 2, but this is also judging that I've only played these games upon buying them and not
Mhm.
recent, So
Yeah.
uh we'll see. I will definitely put Uncharted 2 on the next poll for book club, and if we play it, then we'll play it, and if we don't play it for book club, we'll probably definitely play it at some point anyway. Just
This was a
because,
voted one, right?
yep.
yes,
So thank you, patrons, for picking this. I was able to hit a series that I missed out on, and just such I say such high praises about the game and just the franchise so far.
yeah,
Despite being the worst of the Uncharted, it's still a damn good game.
yeah.
So
I would say it's better than some modern video games, even gameplay wise, right? I mean, there are some games out there that want to do these types of storytellings and gameplay mechanics, and they just don't hit. It still feels relatively modern in a lot of ways, even still ahead of a lot of games these days. Um,
honestly, this would have been now my fourth time beating Uncharted 1. So,
Oh,
and that's saying a lot. I don't often replay modern video games nowadays. So,
yeah, I think it helps that this game is short too, though, right?
yeah.
hmm
It definitely leaves you either wanting more or satisfied by the end. Uh,
Mhm.
and I think that's my favorite thing about this game, especially knowing that there's 3 other ones, right? So,
Mhm.
but that's I think that's going to do it for Uncharted Drake's Fortune.
Woo.
Next month's game is Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, Ninja Theory's psychological kind of experience through Senua and the Celtic warriors journey. I'm very excited to play this. I think I this game is very special in a lot of different ways, both personally and on the grander scale of video games. I think this game brought a lot of focus on mental health in video games. Um, they promoted it that way. Every single copy of the first million copies they sold went to mental health foundations. They had real doctors, real psychosis doctors involved in creating this, and this game is very special. and I'm really excited to play it. I 1K'd it on Xbox. I think I'm going to try to platinum it on PlayStation as we play through it again. I also played through the Switch version, which was an interesting experience. It's not terrible, but also not a game you should be playing on the Switch, unless that's the only console you have, right? I mean, you can definitely play it there. If you're going to play along with us, wear headphones. It definitely helps. The spatial sound is incredible. It also tricks you, so you can't, like, the sound tricks you of where enemies might be. Sometimes it'll say there's someone behind you and there's no one behind you. It's incredible, and the use of live action mixed with gameplay is also very well done. I'm very excited to play this. So join us for Hellblade. If you're a patron, if you're a $5 patron or above, you can go vote on our next game, which is I guess would be the April game is currently going. By the time most of you listen to this, it'll probably be the May game at this point. So go vote. A lot of great games up there. And we will play that game. Stephanie, Pat, thank you for your time, as always. I know it's been a long week for a lot of us. Appreciate.
I'm very fortunate to have you guys and discuss video games.
You guys are a true treasure.
Oh.
No one else I'd rather be on a deserted island with.
Don't worry, if you shoot me in the neck, I'll just grab my leg like I tripped over something, and then I'll keep shooting at you. Everybody out there, I appreciate your time as well. Like, subscribe, share, rate, and review. Thank you so much for watching and or listening to this episode of Video Game Book Club. And until next time, we love you. Goodbye.
Bye.
If you want to see how you can become a Patreon producer, head on over to patreon.com/BossRushNetwork. The Patreon producers for this month are Adriel Munger, Austin Campbell, Celeste Roberts, Christian S., Sana Dirrig, Francisco Santillan, Matthew Keel, and Todd Oxtra. Thanks for your continued support of the Boss Rush Network.